Well, we'll open up the floor, and so give people some time to type in the questions, or you can raise your hand if you want to ask the questions orally. While you're doing this, I actually got a few comments from the audience. Very nice. So more of a comments instead of a questions. And one of them is so Devin, you mentioned one of the accelerators was buried at 10 centimeters. So one of the comments is what would be the differences if we bury that in 1 meter depth compared with a shallow depth like 10 centimeters? Is there any differences we notice?
Yeah, the further down you go, the better signal you'll get, and you'll eliminate any noise. In addition, it'll be better coupled to the earth. As you go down, there'll be less loose soil packed around it. Typically, though, a shallow burial will be sufficient and usually gets you around having to get any permits for ground disturbance or anything like that. So depending on what your requirements are for permitting and everything, I mean, a deeper burial would be nicer, but it might be more trouble than it's worth.
Mm-hmm. Right. The other comment that I received from the audience is about the B-value estimation. So how important do you think a B-value estimation might be useful to assess future risks? So any B-value analysis we've performed in any of those induced seismicity project? Yeah, so a common thing we'll look at, for any project that we can accurately calculate magnitude, so anything that we have a network of 4 or 5 sensors out, we will do a B-value calculation and try and get a value to see if it's closer to 1, which is I guess more natural and related to structure being activated versus, I guess, technical or a hydraulic fracture is usually higher B-value, upwards of 2. So we do look at it, and I guess in areas that you'll be very close to a previously treated pad, you can maybe extrapolate and try and apply the same B-value. But I have seen projects on pads that were only 10 or 15 kilometers apart, and they've had very different seismic response and B-values. So it's really hard to predict going forward what your seismic response will be just based on B-values from a previously treated pad. Yeah.
Definitely
sure,
something. Yeah, definitely something we'd look at and analyze, but tough to predict.
Yeah, B-value is one of the parameters we look at, but there are many other attributes. So I hope this answers the questions of the audience. If you, some of you still have questions, there's still time to type them in or raise your hand, and I can unmute you. So while we're waiting, so maybe I can ask some of the questions, because induced seismicity is quite new, even in industry. So the regulator bodies are actually enforcing induced seismicity. So is there any further constraints if the magnitude is above, say, 4 or 5? Other than stop operations, does the regulator bodies also have some additional constraints or type of penalties to the operator?
Not really penalties yet, anyways.
Okay.
No, if we are getting large magnitudes event, the regulatory bodies will force the operators to stop, and it's pretty much on a case-by-case basis. Then the operators and the regulatory bodies usually get together and discuss what's going on, what caused it, what can be done to mitigate it, and each case will be treated separately, I believe. So it's not really a blanket solution.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of this project that you show, we have observed like 3,000, more than that. Is that typical number of induced seismicity events?
It really depends on the area that you're treating. So that project that I showed, I think it was 1,300 for that particular one. We have seen, upwards of thousands of events for some. But again, we can get some with 5 or 10. I would say getting thousands of events is fairly rare, but if you get into an area that's got a bunch of structure that's going to be activated, once you start activating that structure, it usually lights up and gives us hundreds or thousands of events. So I would say it's fairly rare, but it's not uncommon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I've been monitoring this. I don't see any further questions coming in. So if there's no more questions, I think we can close the webinar.
All right.
Right. Thanks, Devin.
And everyone.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for attending the webinars. There will be a video available for you to review and for you to distribute if you're interested in more information. The next webinar, as Devin said, is about microseismic geomechanics. I believe Sean will be the one that the speaker for that webinar. So encourage you to stay tuned for the next one.